On Thursday evening, something happened over the skies of central Israel that Israeli air defense commanders had been running worst-case simulations about for years. A single inbound track appeared on radar, traveling at hypersonic velocity, and then it split. Not into two objects, not into three, into a spread of independently maneuvering warheads descending simultaneously across a corridor stretching from the outskirts of Tel Aviv to the northern edge of Beersheba. Iron Dome batteries activated across 4 separate sectors at the same moment. David's Sling launched intercept sequences against the higher altitude components. Arrow attempted terminal engagement on the fastest descending elements. When the intercept count was tallied, the numbers did not add up in Israel's favor. Multiple warheads reached their terminal points. Impacts were confirmed across infrastructure sites in 2 cities. And for the first time in this conflict, the IRGC published a statement using language that had not appeared in any previous wave communication. They described the operation not as a strike, but as a penetration of the integrated air defense envelope. That is a specific technical claim, and it requires a specific technical answer. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what Iran launched, how a hypersonic delivery vehicle combined with a cluster payload creates a mathematical problem that layered air defense systems cannot currently solve, and what it means for this war when the defensive shield that Israel's entire security posture has rested on for a decade is visibly breached on live footage in front of the entire world. Before we continue, please subscribe and like the video. Every single subscription helps keep this reporting independent and going. Now, let's get into what actually happened. Here's the weapon Iran used on Thursday night. The missile system identified in IRGC communications was a Fatah variant configured with what Iranian military sources described as a separating hypersonic cluster payload. The base vehicle is derived from the Fatah hypersonic glide missile first publicly revealed by Iran in June 2023. The original Fatah was designed as a single warhead maneuvering hypersonic weapon capable of terminal velocities between Mach 13 and Mach 15. At those speeds, the intercept window available to any existing surface-to-air missile system collapses to fractions of a second. The physics are unforgiving. A standard interceptor requires time to reach altitude, time to achieve closing velocity, and time for its kill vehicle to reach the threat. At Mach 13 to Mach 15, there is not enough of any of those times available. But the Fatah's original single warhead configuration still presented a manageable, if extremely difficult, intercept problem. 1 track, 1 terminal point. Every resource available focused on that single object. The variant Iran deployed on Thursday eliminated even that narrow intercept window. By combining hypersonic delivery velocity with a cluster separation mechanism, Iran created a weapon that arrives faster than any existing intercept system can engage, and then multiplies into simultaneous terminal threats before any secondary engagement can be organized. The parent vehicle reaches the engagement altitude before intercept missiles from ground batteries can reach it. At separation, the sub-munitions disperse across a wide coverage area, each following an independent ballistic path to a different ground coordinate. The air defense system is now facing multiple objects, arriving simultaneously at hypersonic terminal velocity, spread across a footprint too wide for any single battery to cover. Iron Dome is not designed for this problem. Iron Dome was engineered to intercept short-range rockets and artillery shells in the 4 to 70-kilometer range band. Its Tammer interceptors are optimized for threats traveling at several hundred meters per second, not several kilometers per second. The system uses a cost-effectiveness filter built into its fire control logic. It calculates the probability that an inbound object will land in a populated or critical area, and only fires an interceptor if that threshold is crossed. Against short-range rockets, that logic conserves expensive interceptors effectively. Against a hypersonic cluster payload dispersing sub-munitions simultaneously across a wide coverage zone at altitude, the filter logic breaks down entirely. Every sub-munition becomes a separate engagement decision. The system cannot determine which sub-munitions are targeting populated areas fast enough to organize a coherent sequential response. Deploying Iron Dome against hypersonic cluster sub-munitions is like using a fishing net to catch individual rifle bullets. The system is not malfunctioning. It is being applied to a threat category that did not exist as an operational reality when it was designed. David's Sling handles medium to long-range ballistic and cruise missiles and performed the most relevant intercept attempts against the higher altitude components of Thursday's strike. But David's Sling interceptors cost between $1 and $1.5 million per round. Against a cluster payload deploying multiple simultaneous sub-munitions, the system faces the same volume mathematics that has been depleting Israel's intercept inventory throughout this entire campaign. Multiple engagement attempts per incoming missile, each attempt consuming expensive, finite, difficult-to-replace interceptor rounds. Arrow 3 is Israel's highest-tier interceptor, designed for exo-atmospheric engagement of ballistic missiles in their boost or mid-course phase. Against a hypersonic glide vehicle performing terminal maneuvers at low altitude after already clearing the exoatmospheric intercept window, Arrow 3's engagement geometry is severely compromised. The weapon it was built to stop arrives on a predictable ballistic arc. The Fata variant does not, and THAAD, the American system deployed to the region, carries a price tag of $12 million per interceptor and a production rate of 6 to 7 rounds per month from U.S. manufacturing lines. Against a weapon that separates into multiple terminal threats, THAAD faces the same volume depletion problem as every other system in the layered architecture. The combined result of Thursday night's engagement is the first publicly documented instance in this conflict, where the IRGC's technical claim of defense penetration aligns with independently verified ground impact data. This is not Iran claiming success, while Israeli systems intercepted everything. This is footage. This is confirmed impacts. This is the shield with holes in it. Now understand why this moment matters beyond the physical damage of a single strike. Israel's strategic posture for the past 15 years has been built on a foundational assumption. That assumption is layered air defense, the logic of the entire Israeli deterrence architecture, since Iron Dome's first operational deployment in 2011, has been that the cost of attacking Israel with rockets or missiles exceeds the benefit because a sufficiently high percentage of those weapons will be destroyed before they reach their targets. That assumption justified Israeli military operations in Gaza, in Lebanon, and against Iranian proxies throughout the region. We can act, the logic went, because our population is shielded. Thursday night's strike is the first moment in this conflict where that foundational assumption has been publicly, visibly, and verifiably challenged by a weapon system operating above the capability ceiling of the defensive architecture it was tested against. That does not mean Iron Dome is gone. It does not mean Israeli air defense has collapsed. But it means the assumption underlying a decade and a half of Israeli strategic planning has a crack in it. And cracks in foundational assumptions have consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate tactical situation. Every Israeli cabinet minister who watched the footage of impacts in cities where Iron Dome batteries were active is now sitting with a question they do not have a comfortable answer to. If the shield can be penetrated with this weapon today, what does next week look like? And what about the week after that? Now step back and look at what Iran has achieved across the full 10 days of this conflict. Operation Epic Fury began on February 28th. The United States and Israel conducted over 2,000 strikes across at least 26 of Iran's 31 provinces. Supreme Leader Khamenei was killed. Senior IRGC commanders were eliminated in targeted operations. Iran's missile production facilities, fuel infrastructure, and command nodes were systematically degraded. The White House projected 4 to 6 weeks to achieve military objectives. Iran's response has been 30 confirmed waves of retaliation. By the end of day 10, the IRGC had launched over 500 ballistic and naval missiles and nearly 2,000 drones. 40% aimed at Israel, 60% at American military targets across the region. 7 American service members are confirmed dead. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group, the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, Al Udeid in Qatar, Al Dhafra in the UAE, and positions across Saudi Arabia and the Arabian Peninsula have all been targeted. But the weapon's evolution across those 30 waves is what tells the real story. Waves 1 through 10 used established systems, K-Bar Shekin, Emad, Khorramshahr, 4. High volume, solid fuel, mobile launchers, designed to overwhelm intercept capacity through numbers. The logic was saturation. Force Israel and American systems to spin interceptors faster than production lines can replace them. Waves 11 through 20 added energy targeting, K-Bar Shekan with refined coordinates against fuel infrastructure. The logic shifted from volume to precision economic disruption. Cut the fuel that feeds both the civilian population and the military logistics chain simultaneously. Force the adversary into a resource allocation crisis where every barrel consumed by the military is one taken from a commuter waiting in a rationing line. Waves 21 through 29 introduced specialized warhead configurations, cluster payloads, Earth-penetrating variants aimed at hardened command facilities, a previously undocumented system the IRGC designated only as Edamad. The logic became capability demonstration. Show the adversary that Iran possesses weapons engineered for specific high-value target categories that the existing defensive architecture cannot reliably stop. Wave 30 brought the hypersonic cluster delivery system into the operational record for the first time. Each phase built on the previous one. Each phase used the data from prior intercept engagements to identify gaps and deploy systems optimized to exploit those gaps. This is not a military improvising under pressure. This is a military executing a pre-built escalation sequence that it had designed before the first strike of Operation Epic Fury was authorized. That pre-planning is visible in hindsight. It should have been visible in the intelligence assessments before February 28th. The Washington Post published details of a pre-war National Intelligence Council assessment, concluding that a large-scale assault on Iran was unlikely to topple the government. The same document described Iran's military as capable of sustained multi-week operations, even under intensive bombardment. Whether that assessment influenced the decision to launch Operation Epic Fury is an open question in Washington. What is not open is the result. 10 days in, 30 waves. New Supreme Leader seated and operationally committed. IRGC command structure intact and demonstrably adapting its weapons employment in real time. Iron Dome penetrated on camera. Netanyahu's command facility targeted with an earth-penetrating weapon. The Strait of Hormuz sealed. Oil above $100 a barrel. Donald Trump said this week he was not concerned about rising gasoline prices and that Iran would have no choice but to capitulate. Iran's new supreme leader said this week that the campaign will continue until its objectives are achieved. Iranian President Pezeshkian said Iran will not negotiate under bombardment. Both sides are talking about winning. Neither side is talking about stopping. And the weapons being deployed in week 2 are more capable than the weapons deployed in week 1, which means week 3 is a question nobody in Washington, Jerusalem, or Tehran has publicly answered. Share this with every person you know who still believes this defensive line is holding. 10 days, 30 waves of Iranian retaliation. A hypersonic cluster missile separating mid-flight into simultaneous terminal threats across a corridor from Tel Aviv to Beersheba. Iron Dome activated and overwhelmed. Confirmed impacts on infrastructure in 2 cities. The intercept architecture that Israel's entire strategic posture has rested on for 15 years with a publicly documented penetration. Over 500 ballistic missiles, nearly 2,000 drones, 7 Americans dead, over 1,300 Iranians dead, oil above $100, the strait sealed, a new supreme leader in place, and a weapons escalation sequence that is moving faster than the political frameworks designed to contain it. That is not a war that peaked in week 1. That is a war that is still finding its ceiling. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate your support. Join the discussion in the comments below. Do you think Iron Dome can be upgraded fast enough to close this gap? And where does this escalation sequence end? Let me know. Please subscribe and like the video if you want to stay updated, and click the video on screen to see another one. I'll see you soon.